I'm Motley Fool Canada Senior Analyst Nick Seipel, and this is the 5-Minute Major, here to make you a smarter investor in about 5 minutes. Today, we're discussing what to look for when you're looking for a dividend stock investment. My guest today is Dividend Investor Canada lead advisor, Nate Parmelee. Nate, thanks for joining me.
Happy to be here, Nick.
Hey, great to have you here, Nate. Without further ado, what are the three most important traits you look for when you're picking a dividend stock for Dividend Investor Canada?
So looking for a lot of the same things you'd look for in any company. So you're looking for, great competitive position, good returns on capital or equity, obviously cash flow or a path to cash flow. With dividend companies in particular, though, that cash flow is where it really comes kind of down to the brass tacks, because cash is king and dividends are paid from cash. So if there's not enough cash there, you're either issuing debt or you're drilling down your cash balance. One way or the other, it's not good. So at the beginning, metric number one is free cash flow. Ideally, it's growing, but doesn't necessarily have to be. But I personally prefer companies growing their free cash flow. And then second, what I'm looking at is what is the payout ratio on that free cash flow, which is just how much of the dividend is being consumed by free cash flow. Lower is generally better, although it kind of depends on how mature a company is, what the dividend yield is. There's a lot of gray there. But you don't want a company, again, that's overstepping its free cash flow with its dividend on a regular basis. And then third, and this is more of a personal one, because not all dividend payers are dividend growers, but I love companies that are growing their dividend payout ratio. Lots of times you can get a great valuation on a company and a high quality company that's only yielding, say, 2% or maybe even less, but has a very low payout ratio, history of growing the dividend, and plenty of room to keep growing their dividend, and likely to do so over time. And it turns out there's research that's starting to come out saying those are actually the best performers among dividend payers. It's not necessarily the ones that yield 7-8% that are going to give you the best return. In fact, they can be the highest risk, because it's the market trying to tell you, be careful there. There's a reason the yield has been stepped up to 7 or 8%.
That makes sense, Nate. We're looking for safety, looking for reliability, also looking for something that hopefully can grow over time. So with that in mind, what's an example that you think of as a great dividend stock, a company that has those traits you're looking for?
It's funny, you wouldn't think of it. In the past, I would have actually gone to the oil market and said Canadian Natural Resources, because they manage their balance sheet well. They don't have a ton of debt, so the debt doesn't get in the way of the dividend, and they've been consistently stepping up the dividend. But with them recently saying, hey, we've got our debt down so far, we're going to 100% payout ratio, dividend growth now is more dependent on kind of the price of oil, and that's going to be volatile. So I don't think you're going to get that dividend growth necessarily that I like to see. So instead, I'm going to go with something that most folks may not consider when they think of a dividend payer and a great dividend opportunity, and that's Couche-Tard, which actually yields a little bit less than 1% right now, but has doubled its dividend payment over the last 5 years, and still only has a payout ratio of about 16% right now. And I think still plenty of room to grow free cash flow, plenty of room, obviously, then on top of that to grow the dividend. I would not be surprised if folks who buy, say, now, or maybe when the yield's a little over 1%, are getting 3-4% yields in 4 or 5 years on those purchases that they make today, and then maybe even more from that in the future.
Yeah, it's ticker ATD on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Lots of room to continue growing their number of convenience stores, the Circle K brand, all across the world. With that, Nate, thank you so much for joining us for this edition of the 5-Minute Major, and we'll see you next time.